The first bill on the calendar for the day is House File 2529. The clerk will report the bill.
House File number 2529, number 1 on the calendar for the day, an act relating to capital investment, the first engrossment.
I call upon the author of the bill, Representative Murphy, to explain the bill. And there is an amendment at the desk, Representative Murphy.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I would like to move adoption of the amendment.
Representative Murphy moves the A20-0798 amendment. The clerk will report the amendment.
Murphy moves to amend House File number 2529, the first engrossment. The amendment is coded A20-0798.
Representative Murphy, to your amendment.
Madam Chair, members of the committee or members of the House of Representatives, the amendment to House File 2529 is a technical amendment that corrects errors
Representative
that
Murphy.
were pointed out in the morning.
Representative Murphy?
Yes.
Could we ask you to speak a little more loudly? I think some members in the chamber are having a little trouble hearing, if that would be all right.
Sure. Does that help?
Representative Murphy, that does help.
Okay, but I have to turn off that other thing.
And you have the floor, Representative Murphy, when you would like to proceed.
Oh, I'm having technological problems. I had to shut off the television live coverage of this House of Representatives so I could turn up the sound. I hope that works better. Does it? Does that help with the sound?
Yes, Representative Murphy, you may proceed.
Otherwise, I'll just use my teacher voice. I still have that. All right. It's a technical amendment that corrects the errors that were pointed out after the bill was left Ways and Means.
Further discussion to the A20-0798 amendment? Seeing no further discussion, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye. Aye.
Those opposed, no. The motion prevails. There is another amendment at the desk. The clerk will report the amendment.
Purcell moves to amend House File number 2529, the first engrossment, as amended, and the amendment is coded A21.
Representative Purcell, to your amendment.
Thank you. Madam Speaker, can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can, Representative.
Thank you. Bringing this amendment this morning, the A21, to put $3 million into the bonding bill for the American Indian Community Development Center in Bemidji to purchase their building that they've been paying rent on for some time. And this purchase of this building will allow them to free up approximately $400,000 every year to put towards the work they do in job training and reducing recidivism and out-of-home placement for children. And they work with about 2,000 people a year, and have just done a lot of good work in this area. And Bemidji, as I think most folks know, sits at the center, as it were, of the three largest tribes in Minnesota. So there's a significant need for this, and this will just help them put more of that money. They operate strictly on grants, and this will just help them put more of that grant money to helping people get jobs and training, etc., as opposed to paying rent. So that's basically the amendment, and I appreciate support.
Discussion. Representative Garofalo.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Would Representative Purcell yield to a question?
Yes.
He will yield. Representative Garofalo.
Madam Speaker, Representative Purcell, where are you taking the money from? Who would be receiving money if this amendment was not adopted that will not be receiving money if we do adopt it?
Representative Purcell.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. With Representative Garofalo, we're proposing to add $3 million to the bonding bill. We aren't taking it from anybody.
Representative Garofalo.
Madam Speaker and Representative Purcell, if we're adding $3 million to the bill, that would presumably have an additional debt service cost. Is that correct, Representative Purcell?
Representative Purcell.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. That's my presumption. Representative Garofalo.
Representative Garofalo.
Well, Madam Speaker, members, I would rise to a point of order under Rule 4.05 and state my advice.
Representative Garofalo rises to a point of order. State your advice.
Madam Speaker and members, under House Rule 4.05, absent a budget resolution, amendments that have a fiscal cost are not in order. And the author of the amendment, Representative Purcell, just said he was adding an appropriation to the bill and adding additional debt service. And so that's in violation of our House rules. And I would ask that you take the point of order well taken. We can't spend money we don't have, let alone, but first of all, an amendment this violates our rules.
Advice. Representative Winkler.
Madam Speaker, advice. I would find the Garofalo point of order not well taken. The budget resolution has not been adopted for this year, and it is after the last Thursday in the legislative session.
Further advice. Representative Garofalo.
Madam Speaker and members, 4.05 is in effect when there isn't a budget resolution. That's what the rule is. So the fact that the majority leader highlighted that is an example of why this is out of order.
Further advice, members. Having listened to advice from Representative Garofalo, Representative Winkler, and reviewing House Rule 4.05, I find the point of order not well taken. To the amendment. Any further discussion? Seeing no further discussion, all those in favor of adoption of the Purcell amendment, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, no? The motion prevails. The amendment is adopted. There is an amendment at the desk. The clerk will report the amendment.
Lee moves to amend House File Number 2529, the first engrossment as amended. The amendment is coded A20-0795.
Call upon the author of the amendment, Representative Lee.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I'd like to withdraw the amendment.
Could you state that again, sir?
Madam Speaker, I'd like to withdraw the amendment.
Representative Lee withdraws the amendment.
No further amendments? There should be another one. I think that one was pulled and that's done.
It's pulled? Okay, we're good? We're good. There are no further amendments at the desk. The clerk will give the bill its third reading.
Third reading, House File Number 2529.
Third reading. We will revert to the quorum call, members.
Hassan. Hassan.
Minneapolis, present.
Hassan, Minneapolis, present. Noor.
Oh, St. Paul, present.
Noor, St. Paul, present. Zhang Jie.
Sean J. St. Paul, present.
Zhang Jie, St. Paul, present.
Discussion to the House File 2529 as amended. Representative Dean.
Thank you, Madam Speaker and members. I rise today to ask you to consider a yes vote on 2529. For the past 8 years, I've had the pleasure of serving on the Capital Investment Committee. And I've served under 4 chairs, all of whom are still serving here in the House. Representative Hausman, Representative Torkelson, Representative Erdahl, who's also a member of the Dean Caucus, and the current chair, Mary Murphy, who, interestingly enough, I'm sitting at her chair today speaking to you. I've had a pleasure of traveling all over the state on 15 different trips, doing many site visits. And the thing that makes this committee so special is the way you get to know your colleagues in a very different way. Whether you're in Worthington, Bemidji, Moorhead, Windham, or Maplewood, we visited projects that were important and critical for the people in those cities and those regions. Over the past 8 years, I've seen many different approaches on how to put together a bill that is responsible to Minnesota and the tapestry that makes our state so unique. I want to give recognition to the current Chair Murphy, who did an amazing job of including members in the process of crafting this bill before us today. I can't thank you enough. Members were engaged in the process, and it's not always just about the members advocating for the projects that are in their district. Some of the projects are large, some are small, including HEAPR funding for both the University of Minnesota and Minnesota State. One of my favorite projects in this year's bonding bill is the Center for the Arts in Chatfield, Minnesota. I've been a supporter of this project my entire time in the House, and this is the kind of project that are critical to many of our small towns throughout the state of Minnesota. But this bill also funds local roads and bridges, many water infrastructure projects, housing infrastructure bonds for new affordable housing, funding for public housing that occurs throughout the state of Minnesota, and for shelters for those experiencing homelessness. In addition, it provides funding for the DNR that includes funding of state trails, as well as the critical needs for the Department of Corrections. I want to thank you, Madam Speaker and members, and I request that you vote yes on House File 2529 as it has been amended. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
The member from Anoka, Representative Erdahl. Doesn't it? It says Anoka on your plate, sir. The member from Meeker, my apologies, sir.
Thank you. Madam Speaker and members, you're giving...
Anoka would be lucky to have you, sir.
Well,
what can I
there are
say?
shocked people in Meeker County. Before I actually begin today, I just want to mention that I do have my mask with me. This one actually was made by my wife. It has Mr. Incredible on it for me. And through Deanne's Country Village in Litchfield, the masked mamas of the Litchfield area have made over 9,000 of these. So I think it's an incredible accomplishment for them. So, Madam Speaker and members, I rise today to talk about the need for capital investment bonding in the state of Minnesota. And I want to thank Representative Murphy for her work. I've rarely worked with anyone who wanted to be as transparent and all-inclusive as she was. So why do we bond? Regardless of political concerns, elections, or personal predilections, we bond to serve the needs of the people of Minnesota. This year, we listened to presentations and/or toured hundreds of projects. We had $5.5 billion in requests. The needs are there. We are in the midst of an economic crisis. Our unemployment rate has neared historic levels. Bonding does provide jobs, some now, but most not immediately, in future years. But it offers hope, and it stimulates our economy. Former Treasury Secretary Lawrence Summers touts the ability of strategic infrastructure investment to create quality jobs and provide an economic stimulus by expanding the economy's capacity. There will be PFA projects and the resulting jobs underway this summer if we pass a bonding bill. If we do no bill, 54 projects will not be done and will be pushed into next year, causing other projects to be delayed and costs to go up. Concerns about the cost of debt service are real, but there is another side to it. If we do no bonding bill, the taxes from the companies and workers will not be collected. The delay will result in many millions of dollars in increased cost that we will be asked to make up for in future bonding bills. We pay either way, or locals pay through higher property taxes. Members, we have people drinking arsenic in our state. We have defective wastewater systems backing up sewage into people's homes. We have pipes under our streets from before the 1950s. We have roads and bridges in serious disrepair. We have a town that literally becomes isolated when it floods. And we have colleges and universities whose roofs leak into classrooms. This isn't irresponsible spending. This is about taking care of the buildings and property that the state of Minnesota owns. It is our trust and obligation to the people. Unfortunately, we can't do it today. As Mrs. Blakesley, Representative David's grade school teacher, used to say, Gregory, today is not the day. Don't get me wrong. I want a bill done this summer. For nearly a year, I've advocated a way to achieve consensus and do this in a timely manner. It doesn't have to be done like this, and it's not Chair Murphy's fault. I asked that folks get together and give us a target early. They were unable or unwilling to do so. I've repeatedly said that we won't pass a bill that is higher than the House Republican caucus can support. You need our votes. I proposed a starting point from which I thought we could find agreement, and we couldn't do that either. I reject suggestions that we have to take a bonding bill down before we can pass one. It doesn't have to be done that way either. This bill is higher than we on this side can support. We still have to pay for it. We need to be responsible and cognizant of that. We could have found a number that worked. I tried. It is my fervent hope that an accommodation can be reached so that we may act on a bill in special session or tomorrow. So because of this process, again, not Representative Murphy's or my choice, because of the size and because of the current standoff, we vote red today. Then when we return, I ask that we set all else aside and remember that we are here to judiciously respect and meet the needs of the people of Minnesota. That's why they sent us here in the first place. Thank you.
On the phone, Representative Lillie would like to be recognized. Representative Lillie.
Thank you, Madam Speaker and members. I'm not sure I was supposed to follow Representative Erdahl's rap there a little bit, but I just want to really say that, you know, this bill is so important. It's so vital, you know, even more in these COVID times. You know, it's been such an honor to be on this committee and travel and see the state and just hear all the needs all over, one end of the state to the other. Our committee, under the leadership of Chair Murphy and Chair Erdahl and Torkelson before, they brought us everywhere. You know, we've just seen Minnesota and all the projects. We've had a great journey this session, and you know, we've just learned. We get up really early in the morning. Mary keeps us, Chair Murphy, keeps us on the road early and way into the night. But just showing how many needs there are all over the state. And I was just really proud of all the members and getting to know them and on the committee and getting into people's local towns and seeing what's important to them. And, you know, people on the committee took it serious, both sides of the aisle. And, and clearly they love Minnesota. So it's just not hard. It's very easy to have a lot of respect for that. I get attached to projects, and Representative Dean earlier kind of talked about that, and they're not just always in your district. You really get a chance to these. You get friends with some of the local leaders down in Chatfield. The city manager down there, even though he helped Greg Davids get elected to office, you get attached to him. Way up in Thief River Falls, there's a mayor. What a great guy. But anyways, just on and on I could go through these things. But you get attached. These projects really help Minnesota. I really hope people reconsider on the opposite side and really vote for Minnesota, invest in Minnesota. This is an important day to vote for our future of our state. Thank you.
On the phone, Representative Purcell would like to be recognized. Representative Purcell. Representative Purcell.
Madam Speaker, can you hear me?
We can hear you.
Thank you. Not sure what sound going on. I just want to, can you hear me, Madam Speaker?
We can hear you, Representative Purcell.
Okay. I had some background noise. I apologize. Madam Speaker, I just wanted to speak in favor and ask for a green vote on this, yes vote on this bill. And for all of the good reasons that Representative Erdahl cited, we need this bill. And he talked about people drinking arsenic. Here in Bemidji, we got people drinking them perfluoroalkylated substances, the 3M left out there from firefighter foam. So this isn't a bill to be jostled with, I would offer. We should be voting green on this. I want to thank Representative Chair Murphy and excuse me, and her staff for bringing this bill forward, and we need to have this work done in Minnesota and to keep people safe, among all the other reasons that Representative Erdahl cited in his testimony. So I just asked for a green vote, Madam Chair. Thank you.
On the phone, Representative Hornstein would like to be recognized.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Members, I rise in support of the 2020 bonding bill before us. I want to highlight the fact that we have many important transportation investments in this bill, and in particular, the $55 million item for bus rapid transit is especially critical. We know that this investment will create many jobs in our state, including in facilities in St. Cloud and Crookston that are new flyer facilities that employ 1,200 people. This is where these buses will be manufactured. So they are buses that are for Minnesotans, made by Minnesotans with materials sourced from Minnesota companies. And that is from a report released earlier this week from the Minneapolis and St. Paul Chamber of Commerce, among other organizations. We also know that these investments are critical to address and mitigate our climate crisis. Transportation accounts for the largest source of greenhouse gas emissions, and utilization of public transit and electric buses are a critical part of our state's response to addressing our climate emergency. And finally, members, this is an important investment in our mobility. We have found in the COVID-19 crisis that 40% of those riding transit are our frontline workers, healthcare workers, grocery store workers, public employees, postal workers, sanitation workers, the very people that are keeping all of us safe and afloat in this time of crisis. So members, for many reasons, I support this very, very critical bill. The transportation and public transit provisions are particularly timely and important. Thank you very much, Madam Speaker.
Representative Garofalo.
Madam Speaker and members, there can be differences of opinion on the proper size and scope of government. There can be disagreements on what investments we should make. But there can be no disagreement about the math that is involved in state budgeting. We have a constitutional requirement in this state to balance the budget. We are not the federal government. We cannot borrow unlimited sums. Likewise, we can't print money like the federal government does. And faced with a $2.5 billion budget deficit, one fact remains about this bill. It is not paid for. Good things, bad things in this bill today. The cost of the budget this year, as well as the upcoming cycle, is $260 million. $260 million when our state is already facing a multi-billion-dollar budget deficit. Members, no fiscally responsible member of this legislature can vote for this bill as long as it's not paid for. Madam Speaker and members, I would urge a no vote. I want to urge those who are making decisions on fiscal matters to take a more responsible path forward and pay for the spending that's being proposed. Thank you.
The member from Clay, Representative Lean.
Thank you, Madam Speaker and members. I speak to urge support of the House file. I want to thank Representative Murphy and Representative Lean and all the work that all of the bonding committee members put into this bill. I know they're very long hours, literally long hours, traveling all over the state. And this is a strong bill. This is a good bill for all of our communities around the state, all of the colleges and universities that need this critical assistance from the state to get these infrastructure projects done. Lastly, I want to speak to the flood hazard mitigation provisions in this bill. This is, again, critical work that my part of the state, the Red River Valley, certainly uses these dollars very wisely. It's a very strong partnership between the DNR and the communities for these dollars, and it's a great program. As we're having more needs for flood hazard mitigation projects, not only in my part of the state, but also in southern Minnesota, I really strongly encourage the Department of Natural Resources to be giving more consideration for bonding requests. I certainly support Chair Murphy's work, the $20 million in this bill. I support Governor Walz's proposal. He also had $20 million in his bonding proposal. And we need to continue to do more. We need to continue to give further consideration for these critical flood hazard mitigation dollars. $20 million does not stretch really far around the state. And as I said, with the more projects needing to be done in southern Minnesota, there's going to be more competition for these dollars in the future. So again, thank you for all the work on this bill, Chair Murphy, and I do want to thank the DNR for all of their partnership that they undertake with all the communities around the state to get these projects done. And going forward, we need to be giving more consideration for these sorts of projects, because the longer that list grows, the more expensive they get down the road. So thank you, members. Please support Chair Murphy's bonding bill.
The member from Hennepin, Representative Lee.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, and thank you, members. It's been an honor to serve as the Vice Chair for the Capital Investment Committee this year, and I just want to say thank you to Chair Murphy and our committee members for their work and engagement in committee and on the road when we were traveling throughout the state of Minnesota to look at these different critical infrastructure for the people of Minnesota. I just want to really speak to the equity provision in this bill that we have, because we have to recognize that oftentimes when we make public investments in the state of Minnesota, there are communities that are often left behind or are disinvested in. And I just want to say that, this proposal that we have before us is actually, making those investment in those communities to ensure that they are getting these services and their needs are being taken care of. And, Representative Samantha Vang said it best in our committee this year when she talked about why we need to invest in, local nonprofits, because when there is a lack of fulfillment from, the public side, we need to ensure that there are services that are being met from community members and community groups. And so that's why we have in here some proposal to fund nonprofits so that they could actually address the needs that they are seeing in their communities. And I just wanted to quickly point out some of these requests that we have from throughout the state of Minnesota regarding equity. We have a proposal from Representative Grasso for the Red Lake Band of Chippewa Indians Family and Child Building in Northwest Minnesota. We have Representative Sundin for the Brookston Closed Landfill in Northeast Minnesota that will actually help our tribes that are in the area. We also have a proposal from Representative Hamilton for the Nobles County Welcome Education, Library, and Livability Project in Southwest Minnesota. Representative Lippert for the Albert Lee Poetry Processing in Southeast Minnesota. This will actually go towards helping our immigrant communities and immigrant farmers. And then, down to the metro area and to the Twin Cities, we have the proposal from Representative Hassan and Representative Gomez for supporting a collective Minnesota urban Indian organizations here in the Twin Cities. And so, Madam Chair, I just want to say that the proposal that we have is truly one that addresses the needs of all Minnesotans and really try to correct some of those disinvestment that we have made in the state of Minnesota. And members, let's come together to pass this bill today. Thank you.
The member from Dakota, Representative Halverson.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And I also rise in support of a robust and strong bonding bill to build our communities and build jobs and economic development in our state. But I want to tell a story about how significant to one community a bonding proposal can be. In my community of Eagan, Minnesota, in Dakota County, we experienced a horrible tragedy. Last year, a 13-year-old boy was hit by a car crossing a road to school in Eagan on his 13th birthday. Eagan is a city of almost 70,000 people, but I always say it's the largest small town because we are very connected, and I'm sorry I didn't know this was going to make me cry. That moment, my community was in so much pain, and we've been in pain for months because of the loss of this kid. When Diffley Road first started being traversed in Dakota County, it was a dirt road, and it was a dirt road when the first elementary school was built, Northfield Elementary in Eagan. And Eagan boomed and grew, and Diffley Road became a major thoroughfare in our community. 2 more schools were built on that corner. 4,000 children go to school there every single day. And when this child was killed, we all knew it was time for our community to come together and work to make this place a safe place for our children so that moms can send their kids off to school and know they're going to come home at the end of the day. It's such a small town. When I went to that funeral, 2 of the pallbearers were children who are in my house all the time. And to watch them have to say goodbye to a classmate was horrifying. It's such a small town that the priest who said Mass for that funeral is a neighbor of mine. And we talked about the burden of having to give comfort to all of the children who were at that funeral. And so thanks to Dakota County, thanks to the city of Eagan, thanks to Eagan School District 196, we all got together and worked to find a way to keep our kids safe on Diffley Road. And in order to do that, we need some bonding dollars. The planning is almost done. We just need some resources to do it. And I'm so proud to be carrying this bill for my community. And I wanted to tell that story just so you all know how significant, while we talk about the bonding bill in grand and big ways and statewide ways, we know that these are local projects. We know that these are things that our communities need. And I really want us to see, I want to see us support our small towns, support our communities, and support this little tiny provision in here to keep kids safe in my town. Thank you very much, Madam Speaker.
The member from Blue Earth, Representative Considine.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And before I talk about the bill, I would like to say thank you to Chair Murphy. In my entire time in the legislature, I have never seen a chair go to such extraordinary lengths to try to make sure that things were transparent and that both sides of the aisle could participate and set priorities. It was a tremendous attempt. Actually, Representative Erdahl made most of my points about the bill itself. We have communities that have arsenic in their water, PFAS in Bemidji. The Minnesota River is 15 feet from the main well in Mankato. The Kellogg Street Bridge is going to fall down. These aren't frivolous things that we're putting forth, but mostly this is a bill about hope. Next year, this will be a jobs bill. It will be an economic stimulus package for the entire state. We need to move forward if we're going to get Minnesota back on its feet. I would just take one exception to what Representative Erdahl and Representative Garofalo. We were told we had a bonding capacity of over $3.5 billion. This is $1.5 billion less than that. So I think we have acted in a responsible manner. Rates at this time are at an all-time low. This would be a great bill for workers in greater Minnesota. Thank you, Madam Speaker, and thank you, Chair Murphy.
The member from Isanti, the minority leader, I'm sorry, the author of the bill, the member from St. Louis, Representative Murphy.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Thank you, members of the House of Representatives that spoke about the bonding bill. And Representative Erdahl, you are the lead Republican on the committee, and I think that was probably the best speech I have ever heard you say on the floor of the House of Representatives. And the presentation. And I appreciate most of your speeches at the table when we're in committee, but this one was special because the message was that the needs are there, and the process historically of a bonding bill is to meet the needs of the people of the state, not just for certain kinds of projects, but for what they think, what project they think is most important for their communities. We know that all the communities in the state can't have a bonding project every year. But maybe it would be okay if they had one once in a lifetime of a generation. With over $5 billion of needs for asset preservation, deferred maintenance, and betterment of buildings that are state-owned throughout the state by various agencies. Over $5 billion are sitting, waiting to be addressed. When will we ever catch up if we have what Representative Garofalo said, an old-fashioned bill? An old-fashioned bill of $700 million, or an old-fashioned bill of $500 million, or an old-fashioned bill of even, we've gotten there 3 or 4 times, $1 billion. How are we going to address $5 billion of asset preservation, deferred maintenance, and betterment by never investing in a project that a town needs, or never investing in the railroad grade separation that southeast Minnesota desperately needs for a whole community of people to be able to get out if there's some kind of calamity at Prairie Island? Can we take care of our asset preservation, our deferred maintenance, and betterment of buildings, plus the emergencies that are around the state that the committee visited and toured? Can we, with an old-fashioned $750 million bill, can we take the most valued thing in the state of Minnesota of the majority of people in most communities, the schools, the education of their children, and the safety and health of their children from birth to death? Can we meet the needs of the University of Minnesota and the colleges and training centers that are under the state of Minnesota colleges system? When we toured this state, at every single college or every single place of learning that we stopped at and visited with the people, we didn't see just traditional 18 to 21-year-olds there. We saw people of all ages there, committed with enthusiasm to better their lives. At the colleges and universities that we visited across the state, I had never seen an attitude that was so hopeful and sure that the participants that were in the classes that we met up with, they were so sure they were doing the right thing and studying the right program. On one of our first stops, we stopped at the Anoka Ramsey School, Minskill, where people of all ages were in this health care training class, learning how to take care of people in the health field. And the people that are in need of their services right now because of the pandemic we're in. And they were working under the worst situation that I have ever seen in any of the colleges I've visited in this state. And they were happily working in those conditions. But they were also showing us the need for betterment of that building, betterment of those facilities. And they weren't going to be building anew so much. They were going to transform the areas that they were in. But they were so committed to their learning, and they were so excited to be there. And the faculty didn't mind that they have to move furniture in and out when the next class comes around, or that they have to haul supplies from one part of the area that they're working at to way over to the other area because they don't have any cupboards or anything like that where they have storage things. We saw the despair of the building, but the enthusiasm of the faculty and the students that were learning, no matter what their age was. And it was a wide variety, from the 20-year-old up to the 40 or 50-year-old that were in the very same learning thing. On our last stop, on the last night of our tour, we stopped over at Normandale. And they had a similar program where they were teaching an area in a laboratory that had just been opened in the past year. There was no difference in the people at Normandale in this nice, new, modern laboratory area and teaching area. Those students and that faculty had the same amount of energy and enthusiasm as the people over at Anoka Ramsey did. So we can make do. Yes, we can. But we shouldn't. We shouldn't make do when we have the availability of planning and spending our money in the best way possible. But if we never, ever go beyond what's always been the acceptable amount of money for a bonding bill, we are never going to be able to keep up as we go forward, because times and ways of change do emerge and cost more. We found out that in this committee, our committee members have found out that it's much cheaper to fund a project in the whole than to phase it out over a period of years. But when you have a small bill that you equate the same as a regular general fund bill, you don't have that opportunity not to phase out. One of the projects that's in this bill is the bridge, the Kellogg Bridge, $55 million. We could have had it much cheaper 4 bonding bills ago. But they wait and they wait and they wait. They're down to 2 lanes of traffic. It is not safe. I have pieces of rock in my office, in the state office building, from that bridge. Jay Zhang's mom goes across that bridge every single day to work. She's scared to death. We have to fix that bridge. And that's in this bill. But there's so many other things that we saw and learned. We saw the areas where Bowser, Bowser had done in northwest Minnesota after the floods, building berms and protecting different ways of stemming off the rivers from going into the communities. We saw those projects or those techniques that they perfected up in the Northwest. We saw some of them being improved upon down where the Minnesota River is overflowing. And they need help desperately because they aren't as far along in the planning stages as up in Northwest. And the areas that are changing because the rivers are changing. The Mississippi and the Minnesota rivers erosion problems in southern Minnesota have to be met with greater solutions than what we already have. And certainly with greater solutions than what we have in a $750 or $1 billion bonding bill. We have to be bolder than that. And I thought we were going to be. But when the pandemic hit and we had to go home, we had to stop. And I didn't say anything about what had been mentioned by the previous speakers of how much we were hoping for. But I was hoping we could break out of the mold of an old-fashioned bill, like Representative Garofalo said, and face the emergencies. But, you know, when you're putting together a bill, whether it's an old-fashioned bill or whether it's going to be a modern bill, and a bill into the future, you have to select the best projects that can get the number of votes that are necessary. 81 votes. And so then it becomes political. But I want to let Representative Doubt know, because he asked on the floor of the House to have a meeting. And I said I would meet. And I followed up. And I talked to the county engineer that I was referred to. And the Zimmerman project truly is a worthy project. And so it's in the bill. Worthy projects are there. Every single place we visited had a worthy project. We've covered all the dumps or landfills or former things, recycling places, waste places. We looked and saw where kids are going through tunnels to get under freeways so they don't have to walk a half a mile down to get to a crossway. There are so many requests that we can't meet, that we cannot meet. But we have to try. And if a bill has to be somewhat financially, fiscally responsible, we can meet that. And I think this bill that's before you today does meet that. And it meets the hopes and plans that the community that is there, that asked for this funding, that welcomed us into their hometowns, were eager to see us. And they didn't look at us like we were Democrats, or they didn't look at us like we were Republicans. They looked at us as people that could help them and were interested in them. Whether they were asking for money for the museum, or whether they were asking for money to take the silt out of their lake, or whether they were sharing their wonderful cinnamon rolls up at Louise's in Two Harbors, or whether we were eating donuts down in Winona at the mini session. And I want to tell you about a couple things that I didn't realize before. I thought I knew lots about Minnesota. But when we were at that mini session down in Winona, and we were seeing the enthusiasm of the faculties of the colleges all over the state, but in Winona they were exceptionally enthusiastic about the programs that they were showing us at the university. But when we were eating breakfast and trying to figure out which kind of donut was the best, then we decided to go down to by the river and see that port of Winona. And I have to tell you, I was a little embarrassed as I noticed. I thought, there aren't any ore boats here. Not that I was expecting ore boats, but I was expecting maybe corn boats or something. But I didn't realize that everybody doesn't have ships and boats. I knew that. I knew that our ports in the state have different kinds of delivery services. But somehow I still expected boats. But instead, I saw these flat things that were carrying stuff. And I'd never really seen a barge before. And it dawned on me, oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. And then I thought, look at all the transportation modes Representative Hornstein talked about. He talked about the BRT. But in addition to BRT, we need rural transit. We need people to be able to go to the doctor and go to a town and have a beer. And we need dial-a-ride services in all over the state. We need roads, and we need good bridges across those roads, and we need communications. You've heard it. There's some project for every one of those titles, but there's not enough projects because we can only have one or two of each kind of thing with an old-fashioned bill. Garoppolo said this wasn't up to date. It is, in the sense that we are limited by the old-fashioned thoughts of how much of this and how much of that can be put in and then traded around so that we have a bill that can pass. This is the first bill that the House of Representatives has been presented with more than just hope. This bill would deliver to Minnesota the connections that would bring us to one Minnesota. I ask for your support and a yes vote to bring the people of Minnesota together, to go forward, to make better solutions, so that our bill can be more than a Band-Aid on the asset preservation and deferred maintenance and betterment of buildings in the future, so that our colleges and universities and our daycare centers and our children can be educated. And the people that have already graduated and need new training and then retire and then, they need some more things to do, they can look at their community college or training center and have a place that says, welcome to here. We can teach you what you want. We can work with you to learn what you need to learn. And so people don't just sit around in their retirement. They learn new things and bring Minnesotans together. We need a bill that puts people in partnership with the government. We need people that connect into one Minnesota. And this bill is a long path to that.
The member from Isanti, the Minority Leader, Representative Dowd.
All right, thank you, Madam Speaker and members. Mary Murphy is a tough act to follow. Representative Murphy, if you promise not to tell my members, I'll let you know you might be my favorite member of the House of Representatives. But she is ruthless, bringing up my own bonding project in my district. First time I've ever actually had one. And Mary, I want to, hopefully I can use your first name. I guess that's not protocol, Representative Murphy. But she's a good friend, and I feel like we are on a first name basis, her and I. I want to thank her for the work that she's done to put this bill together, and I don't question 1 ounce of her words, her belief, her commitment, and her passion for the work that she has done to put this bill together. This is a bill, I also want to thank Representative Erdahl for the work that he has done in kind of getting ready for a bonding bill. I think our caucus remains committed to a bonding bill and remains committed to the need in the state, and I think he very succinctly and was able to articulate the need in the state of Minnesota. And I agree with Representative Murphy, he did it very well. This bill, just to give you some background on it, and while I want to thank Representative Erdahl for his work and Representative Murphy for her work, this bill does not represent their work together. This is Representative Murphy's bill. This is the House DFL bill. This is not a bill that the House Republicans had input in. And that's okay. That's kind of how our process here works sometimes. This bill is a $2 billion bonding bill, general obligation bonds, $2,028,365,000, and I think we upped that by a little bit in our amendments here at the beginning, so it's probably at least $3 million more than that. It includes appropriation bonds in addition to the general obligation bonds of $251,900,000, and in addition to that, it uses cash. Some projects require some cash, some are just cash, but it requires cash off of our bottom line of $61,478,000 just in this fiscal year. To put that into perspective, our budget forecast in February assumed a bonding bill of $755 million. And that was based on the 10-year rolling average for a bonding bill. What that means is anything above $755 million was not, the debt service to pay for anything above $755 million was not accounted for in our February forecast. What that means, this particular bill, with its cash, its debt service, both for the general fund and for the appropriation bonds, in this biennium, over and above forecast, $84,663,000. Actually slightly higher just because of the amendments we added here at the beginning. And in the tails, an additional $175,087,000. Over and above what's forecast. That's just in addition to what's forecast. And we know our state faces a $2.5 billion deficit currently. While I don't doubt the need for the projects and the usefulness a bonding bill would be in creating jobs and spurring some economic growth or fueling our economy during this difficult time, we have to be responsible. You heard me say $755 million, which is based on the 10-year rolling average. This bill, I'm going to put that into perspective. This bill is more than twice the biennial average for the last 16 or 18 years. It's literally more than double what we have done in a biennium over the last 16 or 18 years. This would be the largest bonding bill in state history, without question. And the Democrats in the House seem that their response to the economic catastrophe that's going on in our state right now caused by this pandemic, their response is to put their head in the sand and pretend like it's not happening. Since we have been in session, this is not a budget year, but since we have been in session, we have spent, I didn't write this number down, over $900 million. Some of that was accounted for in the forecast update that we got last week or the week before, whenever that was. But we have spent $376 million out of the House of Representatives. We've passed bills out of the House of Representatives for $376 million of spending just since the forecast that we got that showed a $2.5 billion deficit. I don't know if you're doing math as you're following along at home. We cannot afford this. And this isn't the first time I've stood at this microphone and said, we cannot afford this. And I know why these bills are brought, right? Or I know why past bills are brought. I have no idea why you're bringing this one. Is that the way we're supposed to act with the rules, not question anybody's motives? But does this do Minnesota a disservice when we bring a bill that we know we can't afford and give false hopes and promises that this is something we're going to pass? I hate to say or be the bearer of the bad news in case anybody hasn't figured it out, but I think everybody in the state has figured it out. This bill's not going to pass today. It was never going to. I don't want that to take away from the work that Representative Murphy did in putting this bill together. And if you didn't sense her passion as she was giving her speech just before mine, she is very passionate about this, and she did great work putting a bill together that she believes in. But we as a body need to look at the entire picture for the state of Minnesota. And we cannot afford this. We've already spent out of this chamber $376 million over and above the $2.5 billion deficit. This bill would add another $84 million in this biennium and $175 million in the tails and another $175 million each biennium after that, on average. There seems to be no acknowledgement in this chamber of the situation that we're in. Just since March 16th of this year, 675,169 Minnesotans have filed for unemployment. It is May 16th. In the last 2 months, 675,169 Minnesotans have filed for unemployment. The state has lost $4 billion worth of revenue over that time. And we're continuing here as if it's business as usual. 675,000 Minnesotans have filed for unemployment in the last 2 months. And this week, Democrats brought a bill to the House floor to give pay raises to state employees. And I want to say state employees deserve to have pay raises. But they know that this state cannot afford them. And by bringing a bill to the floor to give pay raises and force members to vote against that, does a disservice to Minnesotans. Just like bringing a bill to the floor that is between 2 and 3 times the biennial average and puts Minnesotans on the hook for debt service that we cannot afford is a disservice to Minnesotans. It's time that we show Minnesotans that we are all in this together and stop bringing bills to the floor that we cannot afford and we know are not going to pass. This is a slap in the face. This divides Minnesotans. Been a lot of questions about whether there will be a bonding bill this session. The press has been hounding me and I've been kind of avoiding them because I want to keep my schedule open in case I get calls from the other leaders. There have been no substantive negotiations on this end of session. And it's almost noon on Saturday. According to our Constitution, we have to finish our business by midnight on Sunday. And we've had no substantive negotiations on a bonding bill. I think leaders are judged by how they step up in times of crisis. I have stood at this microphone and talked about the need to address the budget deficit. I've talked about the need to have conversations about the governor working with the legislature. And we have not had those conversations. As the clock whittles away, I think everybody knows we're going to be back here in 3 weeks, so it's not the end of the world. And there will be a bonding bill. There absolutely will be. It won't be this one, but there will be a bonding bill passed in this state. And the sooner we can roll up our sleeves, work together, get our work done, and show Minnesotans that we really, truly are all in this together, the better off we will all be, and the more Minnesotans will respect us. Unfortunately, this bill is not going to pass today. I would encourage members to vote against it, and let's quickly get to work on something that will pass. Thank you.
The member from Hennepin, the Majority Leader, Representative Winkler.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Thank you, members. Thank you, Representative Lee, Representative Murphy, Representative Erdahl, for all the work that you've put into bonding this session. Members, we all know that Minnesotans deserve communities that are safe, strong, and inclusive. We have a bill in front of us today that funds jobs and local projects that will update our crumbling infrastructure, help people, communities, and business come out of the other side of this crisis even stronger. The need is very clear. All around us, we can see public assets that are crumbling. Assets and investments that generations before us made and have served us incredibly well. We have seen in recent years a Republican insistence on small bonding bills that have not lived up to the needs of our state. Investments have been neglected, leaving problems for someone else to solve. We need to fix your neglect. That is why we are bringing this bill forward. We have critical needs for local communities all around the state, for clean water, repairing roads and bridges, building affordable housing, restoring and protecting natural spaces, connecting people to local businesses and tourism, providing functional space for agriculture and health research, modernizing public safety facilities, delivering increased and more efficient transit options, addressing childcare shortages, supporting innovative job skills training programs for critical industries, providing user-financed loans to farmers who might not otherwise be able to get access to credit, supporting veterans, and helping kids get safely to school. That's what this bill does. Much of this proposal also contributes to the state's COVID-19 response, including investments in projects like the University of Minnesota Clinical Health Research Facility, lab improvements for the Minnesota Department of Health and Department of Agriculture, the State Emergency Operations Center, National Guard Readiness Centers, and several community colleges across the state that offer healthcare training. Minnesotans depend on our public infrastructure to do their jobs and live their lives. Strong infrastructure helps improve our quality of life and our entire state. We need these infrastructure improvements for Minnesota's future, but in the middle of a global pandemic and worldwide recession, and possibly a depression, we need the jobs as well. The construction industry is strong right now, but the pipeline is drying up. In 6 to 12 months from now, we will have a real shortage of construction jobs. Carpenters, large equipment operators, painters and glazers, heating and frost insulators, pipe fitters and plumbers, bricklayers, electricians, laborers, sheet metal workers, all will need jobs in the months ahead. The jobs help their families. The jobs support communities, local businesses, and our whole economy. These jobs can be done safely during the COVID-19 pandemic. Right now, workers need jobs that are safe, and we should be focused on creating them, as many of them as we can. Now, we've heard a lot from Republicans about the need to reopen the economy, but we've heard nothing on the investments that we need to jumpstart the economy, provide people with more economic security, and get people back to work safely. A bonding bill of this size, and it is historically large because we are in a historically dangerous moment in our state's economy and for our state's people. This is one of the best tools that we have as a state to create jobs and build a better long-term future for our people. Now, we've had a lot of discussion in recent weeks linking this bill to ending the governor's emergency powers. Minnesota needs to build its way out of the COVID-19 crisis, not try to insert negotiating items into a discussion related to the governor's emergency powers that are necessary to save lives. Those powers were given to him, as I've said many times, by the legislature. The governor has been stuck in a no-win scenario ever since this pandemic started. And while we can find areas of disagreement, the governor has served our state incredibly well through this crisis, leading with integrity and compassion, and I certainly don't envy the choices he's had to make. He has been a strong leader. The problem is the legislature needs to act to create a bonding bill. The governor can't do it alone. And he needs partners. He needs partners to negotiate. And he needs you. The governor needs you, we need you, Senate Republicans, Senate Democrats, all need you to participate in this process. But I am thinking of a parable that is a version of the lost sheep. It's the parable of the lost shepherd. The shepherd has led the flock to a place it cannot get out of. Ending the peacetime emergency in exchange for a bonding bill is a deal that will never, ever, ever happen. It's irresponsible to even suggest it. Right now, today, I hope this bill passes. And you can feel comfortable thinking, well, we've got a strong negotiating position. We've got our leverage in the minority on the bonding bill, and we'll get something good for this in the end. But there's no path out. There is no path out from here. You have to find your own way out. We cannot go by ending the peacetime emergency in exchange for a bonding bill. Eventually, the fear is going to start to increase. Will the project get done? Will my community support me if I have taken a stand that I know I can't get out of? Eventually, the fear will start to become real. And the call is going to go out to run. Run, sheep, run. Our shepherd has led us astray. That's what's happening at the end of this legislative session. It's noon on Saturday. We adjourn tomorrow night. There is no negotiating position from which you can leave this session under the current terms. And it's not like this is a time for politics as usual. We're in the middle of a crisis. We have over 700 deaths, with deaths and cases quickly rising. We are going to lose many more Minnesotans. We are asking people to do unthinkable acts of courage to save lives and sacrifice themselves and their families in order to protect others. This is not the time for politics as usual and run-of-the-mill legislative horse trading. We do have the resources to address this crisis. We do have the resources to put Minnesotans back to work and build a stronger Minnesota as we come out of it. House DFLers are here today with the will and the courage to act. Investing in jobs and local projects now will quicken our economic recovery and help Minnesotans thrive for generations. We understand if you have concerns about this bill and want adjustments. That's the work we need to do to find an agreement. Minnesotans are counting on us to step up and work together in a reasonable manner to find a bill that works, create jobs, and get our way forward on this crisis as quickly as we can. We can build a stronger state, but only if we act together. Members, I would ask you to vote yes and start this work together and move forward.
The clerk will take the roll.
Acom.
Acom, aye.
Acom, aye. Albright.
Albright, no.
Albright, no. Anderson.
Anderson, no.
Anderson, no. Backer.
Backer, no.
Backer, no. Bonner.
Bonner, aye.
Bonner, aye. Barr. Barr, no. Baker. Baker, no. Becker Finn.
Becker Finn, aye.
Becker Finn, aye. Bennett.
Bennett, no.
Bennett, no. Bernardi.
Bernardi, aye.
Bernardi, aye. Bierman.
Bierman, aye.
Bierman, aye. Bow.
Bo, no.
Bow, no. Brand.
Brand, yes.
Brand, aye. Cantrell.
Cantrell, aye.
Cantrell, aye. Carlson, A.
Carlson, A, aye.
Carlson, A, aye. Carlson, L.
Carlson, L, aye.
Carlson, L, aye. Christensen.
Christensen, aye.
Christensen, aye. Claflin.
Claflin, aye.
Claflin, aye. Considine.
Considine, aye.
Considine, aye. Daniels.
Daniels, no.
Daniels, no. Doubt. Doubt, no. Davids. Davids, no. Davney.
Davney, aye.
Davney, aye. Dean. Dean, aye. Damath. Damath, no. Detmer.
Detmer, no.
Detmer, no. Drzkowski.
Drzkowski, no.
Drzkowski, no. Eklund.
Eklund, yes.
Eklund, aye. Edelson.
Edelson, aye.
Edelson, aye. Elkins.
Elkins, aye.
Elkins, aye. Erickson.
Erickson, no.
Erickson, no. Fabian.
Fabian, no.
Fabian, no. Fisher.
Fisher, aye.
Fisher, aye. Franzen.
Franson, no.
Franzen, no. Freiberg.
Freiberg votes yes.
Freiberg, aye. Garofalo. Garofalo, no. Gomez.
Gomez, aye.
Gomez, aye. Green.
Green, no.
Green, no. Grossel.
Grossel, no to the Kool-Aid.
Grossel, no. Grunhagen. Grunhagen.
Grunhagen, no.
Grunhagen, no. Gunther.
Gunther, no.
Gunther, no. Haley.
Haley, no.
Haley, no. Halverson. Halverson, aye. Hamilton.
Hamilton, no.
Hamilton, no. Hanson.
Hanson, aye.
Hanson, aye. Hassan.
Hassan, aye.
Hassan, aye. Hausman.
Hausman, aye.
Hausman, aye. Heinrich.
Heinrich, no.
Heinrich, no. Heinzman.
Heinzman, no.
Heinzman, no. Her.
Her, yes.
Her, aye. Hertos.
Hertos, no.
Hertos, no. Hornstein.
Hornstein, aye.
Hornstein, aye. Howard.
Howard, aye.
Howard, aye. Hewitt.
Hewitt, aye.
Hewitt, aye. Johnson. Johnson, no. Jordan.
Jordan, aye.
Jordan, aye. Jurgens. Jurgens. Keel.
Keel, no.
Keel, no. Cleavorn.
Claiborne, aye.
Cleavorn, aye. Cagle.
Cagle, aye.
Cagle, aye. Katiza Watun.
Katiza Watun, aye.
Katiza Watun, aye. Kosnick.
Cosmic, no.
Kosnick, no. Kreshaw.
Kreshaw, no.
Kreshaw, no. Kunish Podine.
Kunish Podine, aye.
Kunish Podine, aye. Lehman.
Lehman, no.
Lehman, no. Lee. Lee, aye. Lesh.
Lesh, aye.
Lesh, aye. Liebling.
Liebling, aye.
Liebling, aye. Lean.
Lean, aye.
Lean, aye. Lillie.
Lillie, aye.
Lillie, aye. Lippert.
Lippert, aye.
Lippert, aye. Listlegard.
Listlegard, aye.
Listlegard, aye. Long.
Long, aye.
Long, aye. Lucero.
Lucero, no.
Lucero, no. Lewick.
Loic, no.
Lewick, no. Mahoney.
Mahoney, aye.
Mahoney, aye. Mann.
Man, aye.
Mann, aye. Mariani.
Mariani, aye.
Mariani, aye. Marquardt.
Marquardt, aye.
Marquardt, aye. Mason.
Mason, aye.
Mason, aye. McDonald.
McDonald, no.
McDonald, no. Mecklin.
Macklin, no.
Mecklin, no. Miller.
Miller, no.
Miller, no. Moeller.
Moeller, aye.
Moeller, aye. Moran. Moran. Morrison.
Morrison, aye.
Morrison, aye. Munson. Munson, aye. Murphy.
Murphy, aye.
Murphy, aye. Nash. Nash, no. Nelson, M.
Nelson M, aye.
Nelson, M, aye. Nelson, N.
Nelson N, no.
Nelson, N, no. New. New, no. Nor.
Nor, aye.
Nor, aye. Nornis.
Nornis, no.
Nornis, no. Novotny.
Novotny, no.
Novotny, no. O'Driscoll. O'Driscoll, no. Olson.
Olson, aye.
Olson, aye. O'Neill.
O'Neill, no.
O'Neill, no. Pulowski.
Pulowski, aye.
Pulowski, aye. Purcell.
Purcell, aye.
Purcell, aye. Petersburg.
Petersburg, no.
Petersburg, no. Pearson.
Pearson, no.
Pearson, no. Pinto.
Pinto, aye.
Pinto, aye. Poppy.
Poppy, aye.
Poppy, aye. Poston.
Poston, no.
Poston, no. Pryor.
Pryor, aye.
Pryor, aye. Quam.
Guam, no.
Quam, no. Richardson.
Richardson, aye.
Richardson, aye. Robbins.
No.
Robbins, no. Runbeck.
Runbeck, no.
Runbeck, no. Sandell.
Sandell, aye.
Sandell, aye. Sandsted.
Sandsted, aye.
Sandsted, aye. Sauk.
Sauk, aye.
Sauk, aye. Schumacher.
Schumacher, no.
Schumacher, no. Schultz.
Schultz, aye.
Schultz, aye. Scott.
Scott, no.
Scott, no. Stevenson.
Stevenson, aye.
Stevenson, aye. Sundin.
Sundin, aye.
Sundin, aye. Swazinski.
Swazinski, no.
Swazinski, no. Tabke.
Padke, aye.
Tabke, aye. Tice.
Tice, no.
Tice, no. Torkelson.
Torkelson, no.
Torkelson, no. Erdahl. Erdahl, no. Vang.
Vang, yes.
Vang, aye. Vogel.
Vogel, no.
Vogel, no. Wagenius.
Wagenius, aye.
Wagenius, aye. Waslowick.
Wazlowick, aye.
Waslowick, aye. West.
West, no.
West, no. Winkler. Winkler, aye. Wolgamott.
Wolgamott, aye.
Wolgamott, aye. Zhang Jie.
Zhang J, aye.
Zhang Jie, aye. Zhang Ti.
Zhang T, aye.
Zhang Ti, aye. Joachim.
Joachim, aye.
Joachim, aye. Speaker Hortman. Speaker Hortman, aye. Jurgens. Jurgens. Moran.
Moran, aye.
Moran, aye. Munson changes from aye to nay.
Voted who wish to vote? And all members who have wished to change their vote, change their vote? The clerk will close the roll. There being 75 ayes and 58 nays, the bill not having received the constitutionally required 3/5 vote, the bill does not pass.